So I have 801. Shall we start this thing?
Yeah, let's start this thing.
All right. Because we talked about this beforehand, you may know him as the host of this session. Some of us know him as the creator of Ping Pong Circulate Chain Down the Line and Ferris Wheel, former accredited caller coach and on the Caller Lab board of Governors for 10 years. Let me introduce to you Don Beck.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you all.
I heard of him.
I did, but not until I was about 3 or 4 years old. We are going to talk about six-couple dancing for the rest of us. And I guess why don't we get right into it? I'm going to switch over to my presentation screen. Six-couple dancing, and I like to think of this for the rest of us, because a few weeks ago, we had Clark Baker on talking about hexagons. And hexagons are a special form of dancing. Watch the tape and Clark will tell you all about it. But it adds an extra challenge to those people that are good dancers and want to go on from there. Anyway, today's presentation is by me on this date and all that stuff. Six-couple dancing. Most people that I know do it in rectangles. You've got four head couples and two side couples. Then there are things like hexagons that add challenge. And there are a bunch of other things too. I think Clark's going to be doing something on hashtag calling, and I'm not even putting that in here because I don't know about it, but I plan to tune in and watch. But today we're going to work on facing lines, and that, which happens to be my preference, and I'll try to explain why. So why facing lines? Well, there are advantages for the caller and for the dancer. For the caller, it's really easy to set up. You don't have to go out on the floor and push people around into a hexagon. You don't have to explain about four head couples and two side couples and say square up this way. We'll talk about how to do that very soon. Basically, there's almost nothing to teach the dancers. So you don't have to teach them any special rules. Hexagons have a lot of them. The main thing, and I say basically nothing, the only thing you have to do is say that on a grand right and left, you go 6 hands instead of 4. And this is your new home position. It's really easy to use to add to your repertoire if you're a module caller or if you're a mental image caller. For the dancers, nothing new to learn, which means you can just basically use it off the bat and you don't have to waste time teaching, and they can just enjoy something that feels different, but it's not. It adds variety, so it'll feel different. It'll give them, a kick out of it here and there. And it has the advantage that on occasion, you may be able to get dancers that are sitting out to join in with you. For me, it happens to be the first way that I learned. So that's my personal preference, because I didn't know about these other things when I came up. I think I came up with it myself. Maybe I got it from somebody else. Anyway, not a big deal. But I hope to show you here what the advantage of using facing lines is. So first of all, when to use it? It's a gimmick. Use it when you need something for variety. And one of the, I already had that. One of the times that it pops into my mind to use it was when I notice I have just 3 squares or just 6 squares or an even number of 3, and they're lined up in rows and columns, and there are three squares across the front. And then another column of 3 and another of 3. The other time I use it is when I've only got 1 square left at the end of the evening, but there are 2 other couples, and they start walking out the door, and I say, wait a minute, you guys don't have to leave yet. We can get you into the dance too. and there's probably more often I use it there, and they're impressed that I'm, yielding to their, catering to them so they can dance also. So the question is, how do I set it up? I said it was easy to set up. I didn't have to poke people here and what have you. Assuming I have 3 squares in the front row, I will say sides lead right in the circle to a line. And then I will have the center square divide in the middle, and 2 of the couples slide over to the couple on their left and 2 of them slide over to the couple on the right. So then I have 2 sets of lines facing. I could have done it with heads lead right in the circle to a line and have vertical lines instead of horizontal lines, or should I say columns instead of rows. But I don't. And even though I was an avid contra dancer and really enjoy it, I don't think contra dancing fits into our Western square dance program, and it's left a bad taste for a lot of dancers. And if I got them into vertical lines and into columns instead of rows, some of them would sort of have this negative thing right away. Oh God, we're going to do contras. So I like to have the rows across instead of up and down. Minor thing, but it makes sense to me. And also, what we're going to do not only works for 6 couples, but the exact same thing works for 4 couples or 8 couples. Let's say I had 9, 10, 11, 12 couples, and I have 3 rows of 3, and then I've got a normal square left over. I just have them also square up and sides lead right, and they've got a column of a regular square, 4 dancers facing 4, but all the calls I'm going to do work for them also. Or if we had 2 full squares and they wanted to play the game, I have 2 of them get next to each other, and we'll do it with 8 couples. It all works the same. That's sort of one of the beauties of it. And again, the only difference is the timing for the promenade home. And maybe a couple other things, but not much. So what are we going to do with that? After we set this up, I tried to put it in current terminology, partner lines. I used to think of it as zero lines, and before that I used to think of it as 1P, 2P, 3P lines. So on this diagram, pardon me, but I'm stubborn. I don't use the squares and circles with noses. I use part of a square and part of a circle with arms. So think of these as arms. These are facing lines. And the number 1 couple is together. The squares are the boys, the curvy ones are the girls. Are there any questions at this point about looking at the diagram and what it means? This is where we would end up after a heads lead right, sides lead right, and circle to a line, and make the appropriate things. I will be showing the diagram of the different setups along the way, but we won't be moving them very much. I would love to be able to be doing this in Taminations, but it hasn't accommodated 6 couple stuff yet.
Hey, Don, I got a question.
Yes.
You said you had 3 squares across the front, right?
Yeah.
And then you did what?
I did sides lead right, circle to a line.
All right. So then you had, now you have
a whole bunch. And then I'll have the center. Then I'll have the center square divide and slide apart so that there's 2 sets of 6 couples on either side. The center couple split.
So the center square splits down the middle, and 2 couples go one way and 2 couples go the other.
Correct.
Okay, now I'm with you.
The other thing I forgot to say is that I've got handouts for this talk that I made years ago. The examples are slightly different and what have you, but basically all the information is here. And Dan is going to make those available. I just sent them over to him. Dan is going to make the handouts available. So don't waste time trying to write down the examples and things like this too, John. It is reviewed in there. So for the sake of leaving enough time for discussion and such, we're going to go through some of this stuff rather quickly because you'll have it written down afterwards. But I just trying to get the basic principles part. But feel free to ask questions like you did. And some of them I might put you off till later, and some I might explain if I forgot something, like forgetting to tell you that there's going to be handouts so you have the information. Anyway, partner lines. Let's start with some get outs from a partner line to an Alaman left or right and left grand. The typical modular caller, I'm sure, has many. Somebody posted on one of the Facebook square dance groups very recently, what's your go-to get out from a partner line? And people have been adding stuff to that for 3 weeks now. I think they missed the main comment at the beginning that says, what's your go-to get out? They have all sorts of really cool ones, but I doubt it's their go-to get out. In fact, I put in a few that aren't my go-to get out, but typical from a partner line. And I'm not going to go through each of these one at a time because they're all in the handout or a few extras in the handout. Now, so I wish I had the pointer. Look at the third one down. Alaman left. You can do that if you had to, or the bottom one, grand right and left. You can do that from a partner line. Or one I don't have here, it's swing your partner and promenade, or all join hands and circle left. But what I used to think of, and I don't know what the going thing is on partner lines, is star through, square through, 3/4 to an Alaman left, the first one up there. And you know, some of the ones in that thing where left square through 4 hands, touch a quarter, boys run, or near the bottom, touch a quarter, ladies run to a right and left grand. I think these are common modules that people use, but any module that you have that will get them to a Alaman left or right and left grand from partner lines, you got that there for you right away. Let's move on. Let's convert partner lines to a partner box. Took me a while to figure out what that was. I used to think of this as an 8-chain 1 formation. Basically, if you pass through to your corner, do an 8-chain 1 to your corner. And here's a bunch of ways that you can convert your partner line to a partner box. Right and left through, star through, right and left through, pass the ocean, ladies trade, recycle. You want to make the dancers work a little harder, spin the top, men run, wheel and deal. Any way you want, but let's look at some partner box get outs. A whole bunch of them. We're not going to, actually the first 2 are interesting. An 8-chain 1 will work. You could call an 8-chain, or you could call it a 12-chain 1 if you wanted to, because it's not 8 people moving, it's 12 people moving. So in this case, it's not exactly the same for the couple of the 4 couple square in the back after you have 3 rows of 6 couples. Equivalent in a regular square, the equivalent to a pass through would be an 8-chain 1 or an 8-chain 5. In this case, if you only had 6 couple things, you could call an 8-chain 7 or an 8-chain 15 and go out for coffee. But they'd get you to an Alaman left. The basic one is pass through to an Alaman left. Another basic thing is right and left through, square through, 3/4, or various things to a right and left grand, box the nat, swing through, men trade, etc. They're all listed here. And they're on the handout also, so you don't have to bother writing any of these down. And the last thing on the bottom is if you wanted to convert back to the partner lines because you were going to do some kind of a get out from there, you just do a star through and you're back to your partner lines. Moving on to a corner box. equivalent to a 0 box or an 8 chain through box 1-4. How can we convert from our original partner line to a corner box? And here's a bunch of standard ways you can do it. One I use a lot is touch a quarter, single file circulate one place, and the boys run. There are several others. Let's see. Yeah, the bottom one is, past the ocean, right and left through, past the ocean, spin chain through, and scoot back. And this ends you in a corner box plus step to a wave, but that's okay too. Again, they're simple ways, modules that'll convert partner lines to corner boxes. And there's a lot of stuff we do from corner boxes because we do that a lot from regular squares with heads square through and get started from there. So corner box get outs, Alaman left. Right and left through, pass to the center, center square through, 3. An overused one is swing through, boys run, Ferris wheel, centers pass through. I put the last one in just to make you thinking. It's a slide through, square through, 3/4. This doesn't end in your corner box, Alaman left. It's lines facing out, but it's very possible that dancers do it, and more often used in singing calls than not. Speaking of singing calls, somebody remind me at the end to talk about them because I forgot to put them in the formal presentation. If you want to play around in your corner box for a while and then come back to your partner lines, there's a bunch of normal ways of doing that. Spin chain through, end circulate, double centers, run, bend the line. I think that's a module that a lot of people have learned. I never did, but I know it works because I didn't have to. Flutter wheel and sweep a quarter, touch a quarter, coordinate, wheel and deal, and sweep a quarter. That'll get you from a corner box back to a partner line. Swing through, AC-doocy, boys run, bend the line. By the way, in a lot of these examples or talks I give, I try to stick to mainstream. This has a number of plus calls in it. Enjoy the plus calls, or if you don't want to, just use the mainstream calls as you are. What's this? Oh, 0. This is where Zoom has a thing over my thing, and I can't tell what it is. Zeros and equivalents. I guess that's what we're doing. So if you're doing any call, if there are a bunch of zeros and equivalents that you know and use when you're a module caller that involve only 2 couple calls, 2 couples, right and left through and right and left back, what have you. Any of those will work with the 3 pairs of 2 couples as well as they do with with 2 pairs of 2 couples, or 4 pairs if you're doing 8. 4 couple calls that are zeros that work. The 2 that came to mind are 2 chicken plucker equivalents. If I do right and left through, if I do pass to the center, pass through, right and left through, pass to the center, pass through, right and left through, or pass through, trade by, right and left through, pass through, trade by, right and left through, you're back to where you started from. Here's a word of warning. Do not do dive through, pass through, right and left through. Dive through, pass to the center works nicely, or pass through, trade by with 6 couples. But if you try to call dive through, the outside pairs of couples know that the center arches and the other pass dives through, but the center 4 couples, who's going to arch and who's going to dive? You could have 2 people with arches staring at each other, or 2 people diving through and cracking heads. And so do not call dive through. There are limitations to this. 4 couple zeros from waves, spin chain through, women circulate and scoot back. It'll get you back to where you were as a 0 module. Spin chain the gears. Yes, it's plus. But once you get them moving, they get quite a kick out of this with 2 stars on either side and the whole thing. But they can do it without, and if they can do a normal spin chain the gears, they can do this without any real problems. Somebody tell me what that says. I can't read it because of the silly Zoom thing over. Additional thoughts. Got it.
Additional thoughts, yes.
Additional thoughts. There's something interesting. The technical zeros that use everybody, like spin chain the gears, work. But some true zeros don't work. Relay the Ducey does not work. You end up with, I can't remember exactly, but the end 2 waves end up with 2 guys and 2 gals, and the center wave ends up with either 2 guys in the middle or 2 girls in the middle. But just don't use Relay the Ducey. It does. So I guess you've got to work your checkers to be sure if you got some of those. But in general, technical zeros, if you know what they are, will work, and true zeros don't. Oh, there's stuff that you can do with 6 stuff that's not your typical stuff that you can play with if you're really pushing this, but I find it's not necessary. I mean, let's have, lines of 6 forward and back, pass through, do a 3x3 wheel and deal, double pass through, first 3 left, next 3 right. It zeroes out, but you don't need to get into that kind of stuff. And there's plenty of material to entertain your dancers with. It only goes so far. I remember at a Color Lab session, 5, 6, 7 years ago, that I had his name on the tip of my tongue. He's been with us on occasion. Bob Elling has done some amazingly intricate stuff with 6-couple stuff, that he's had some memorized sequences that get you into weird setups and out again. Really interesting to watch and what have you, but doesn't follow the guidelines that I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make it so that you, the module caller that has some modules you use already with 4 couples, it will work with 6. You don't have to learn anything new. And it's nothing new for the dancers. It's just variety. If you know mental image, all the rules we've learned there apply to ad lib calling in this too. And in my mental image classes, I spend 1 session showing basically what we've been doing, but how to do it with mental image. And not so much so that you can use 6-couple, but more so that you can see how the same rules you've learned apply with this kind of a setup, which is kind of cool. If you're a site caller and just want to call anything you want, you can have some real fun. I've tried it, like calling Relay the Ducey, but I tried to resolve and I really couldn't. I don't advise trying to resolve unless you want to go much further into what you already know. As I say, what we're trying to push here is 6 couples for the rest of it. So you don't have to learn new stuff. You can just add it when you need it. Need it for 1 extra pair of couples or variety, gimmick. As I said at the beginning, most people use the rectangle setup instead of the facing lines. Most of the stuff we've applied, talked about here works the same for that. I just prefer starting with the lines because it's easier to set up. I don't have to explain what I'm doing. I just get them there and say, here you are. One of the things that I should have mentioned earlier, that when you do it from lines, I'll get them into that position and I'll say, everything's the same what you know, except this is home position. If I say promenade home, you come back to this spot. And I also will mention, I generally have a promenade after an Alaman left. occasionally I'll throw in a right and left, and I'll say if you do a right and left grand, you keep going till you get to the person you started it with, generally your original partner. I don't call right and left grand too often because it just goes on forever. But as you know, just part of the showmanship stuff, I'll say, you know, Alaman left your corner, do a right and left grand, go hand over, hand over, hand over, hand over, and hand, and eventually get there and promenade home. It's use it once in a while just to show them they can do it. And again, if you have a 4-couple square in the back, it's going to be different from them, and the timing is always different on that. But as I say, if you do want to set up the rectangles and you have the heads square through, now you're in your corner box and you can do all the zero stuff we've talked about before and what have you. And as I've said frequently, remember, it's a gimmick. Have fun with it, but don't overdo it. I had one group, weekly or monthly group, that really liked it. And I said, well, we'll do one tip this, or maybe somebody suggested do that thing. And they really love it the first time. But if you do it 3 weeks in a row, they're pretty bored. There's nothing new or exciting there. I do what? If you have, you know, one club, a weekly club, and you do it once every month and a half, that's okay. Yeah, as I said at the very beginning, when do you do that? Well, if you only have a square and a half left, if you happen to have 3 rows of 3 squares, if all of a sudden it shows up, why, take advantage of it, but don't overdo it. And the one thing I didn't put in the slides, but I should have talked about, and I said you guys should remind me of, is singing calls. I very frequently actually do singing calls with 6-couple stuff. I will either do, so the normal singing call is break, figure, figure, break, figure, figure, break. And it's 7 times through. I will either do a break at the beginning where it's pretty much just circle left or stuff where you stay near your partner and don't go all the way around. And then the figure through 6 times to get them back to their original partner. Or depending on the song or my mood, I'll do 3 figures, a break in the very center, and then 3 figures at the end. And again, get them to your corner, swing them and promenade. Change your timing so they have enough room to promenade all the way home. And with that, I managed to keep it to half an hour.